But let's jump into this class, Brian. I really want to talk about the quarterback position up front. I mean, gosh, who doesn't? This particular quarterback has been in the class for quite some time. It's always funny when you follow recruiting, and especially from the quarterback standpoint, those are usually the first couple guys to get into a class. And it just feels like, Tyler Buchner's been connected to Notre Dame for so long, and now he's just getting on campus for the first time as a Notre Dame player. So a lot of anticipation for him. I want to get your thoughts on a grade for the quarterback position, how they were able to do bringing him into the fold, and about Tyler Buchner as a player for Notre Dame.
Well, I think that this is an A grade. I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer A grade. You really only needed one quarterback in the class. They signed a second, Ron Paulus the second, or is it Ron Paulus the third?
I think he's the third.
So that gives you a numbers need because, you have some numbers situations. I don't think Jack Cohn was committed at that point in time as a grad transfer when they signed him. So you met your needs numbers, but really it's about, can you get difference makers on campus? And the reality is they got a difference maker on campus. Tyler Buchner is a difference maker. I think Tyler Buchner fits Notre Dame well. I think he's a real respectful young man. I mean, the only time I really talked to him was soon after he committed. He was, I think, a sophomore at the time, real respectful, happy-go-lucky, but a grinder. We interviewed Malik Zaire at Irish Breakdown recently, and he broke Tyler's game down. Well, Malik worked Tyler out at the Elite 11. Malik was one of the counselors, one of the coaches there. So he got to see Tyler's work ethic up close. And everybody you talk to that knows the kid says he's going to work. I mean, he is going to put in the work, and you need that. And he's a kid that doesn't seem to be, I mean, I love Jimmy Clausen as a quarterback, but Tyler Buchner's not showing up in a stretch limo Hummer to announce his commitment to Notre Dame. There's a little bit more humility to him than maybe some of the other greats that Notre Dame has had. So I think he fits in that regards, but being able to keep him in the class, being able to allow him to sort of be the base of this class is important. Now, the next step is going to be developing. That's a different conversation for a different day, but Tyler Buchner is a modern day quarterback. He can make plays from the pocket. He can make plays when things break down. He can throw off platform. He can make plays on the move as with his arm. He can make plays on the move with his legs. He really has everything you want in a quarterback. Now it's, can you build around him? Can you commit to him in a way that maybe you weren't able to develop and commit to some of the other quarterbacks? And this is really going to be the first quarterback. I mean, Drew Pine and Tyler Buchner, the first group of quarterbacks, the highly ranked quarterbacks that will be Tommy Rees only recruits. I think when Tommy Rees took over Brandon Wimbush, there were already some bad habits that were established by the previous coach that he couldn't get out of them. And same thing with Ian Book. He had a degree where he impacted it, but he also didn't have him for a year or two. So I think this will be a guy that you can say, look, we're going to find out what Tommy Rees is made of. He's got two really good quarterbacks, in my opinion, in back-to-back classes, Drew Pine and Tyler Buchner. Between the two of them, you need to be able to develop one of them into an impact player. And the thing is too, they're different types of players.
Sure.
Tyler Buchner is more of a dual threat guy. Drew Pine's more of a drop back and throw it guy. But between the two of them in back-to-back years, if you can't develop a championship caliber quarterback with these two guys, I don't really know what to tell you at that point.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. And it's going to be interesting because I really like what Tyler Buchner brings to the table. I'm a little worried. And of course, his junior year, his numbers were, they were video game numbers, basically. Who couldn't be impressed with what he was able to do. Now, the competition wasn't as good. And so he heard that and then transferred schools out in California to up the level of his play for his senior year, which I totally respect that he was able to do that for his senior year. And then, of course, COVID hit, his season got canceled. So he hasn't taken a meaningful snap since the fall of 2019. Do you think that is going to affect him in a negative way, as he shows up here at Notre Dame?
Only if the expectation was to play him day one as your starting quarterback. I mean, if there was the expectation for that, then that would hurt him. Sure. I don't think that ever should be the expectation for a freshman quarterback unless you're talking about a generational guy like a Trevor Lawrence. And even then, Trevor Lawrence didn't start the first 3 or 4 games of his college career. So, I think that I think that's where I felt landing Jack Cohn was huge for
Sure.
Notre Dame, because now you don't have to play Tyler as your starter, or you don't have to play Drew Pine as your starter. You can let those guys battle. And then if Tyler emerges as good as we think he can be, now it's finding a home for him. And we'll dive into more of how to play him as we get closer to the spring. But I don't think that it's going to hurt him in the current circumstance, because they don't need him to play. If he's not ready next year, then he's not ready. You let him learn. You let him cook in the oven for a little bit. And then when his time comes, he's ready to play. Now, that might hurt him if he's starting in 2022, but it's not going to take him a whole lot of time to get caught up to speed, as long as he's able to face a lot of those live reps in practice. And then any chance you get next year to get him on the field, you take advantage of. And, I think that'll be something to help him develop. But the physical tools for there, the character's there, the intelligence is there, the work ethic is there. Now it's just about putting it all together, and putting a supporting cast around him, which I think they will, and letting his talent take over.
Yeah, no question. And we've got a quick question from one of our viewers. You want to take a look at it real quick?
Go for it. Let's roll.
All right. So Brandon asks, do you think Reese and Kelly will let Buchner keep his natural throwing motion as seen in his highlights, or try to alter it as seen at the Elite 11?
Now, the alter arm motion, from what I understand, was not something that Notre Dame dictated. That's something that Tyler and his quarterback coach felt he needed to do to increase his all-around accuracy as a quarterback. So it didn't look good at the Elite 11. It looked different. Now, what we don't know, however, since it's been a while since we've seen him, is he more comfortable with that now? The end of the day, I don't like tinkering with the guy's throwing motion unless it's something that keeps him from being effective. Tyler felt that there was a part of his throwing motion that kept him from being as effective and accurate on short to intermediate throws. So if he feels that this is something that he has to do to become a more consistent quarterback, short, mediate, intermediate, and deep, then do what you got to do. But it's got to be something he's comfortable with. What hurt Phil Dracovic was they tried to change him to something that wasn't comfortable for him. There was no need for Phil Dracovic to change his motion. This is a situation where Tyler and his quarterback coach felt like there was a need. Now, we'll find out this spring if it's going to work for him. But I don't think it's Notre Dame that was dictating that. I think if he's going out there and he's trying to do the kind of lower three-quarter kind of thing we saw from him at the Elite 11 and it's not working, then they will try to tinker with it. But if he shows up and he's doing that stuff and it looks weird, but if it's working, then roll with it, because that's the biggest thing. You can't have a quarterback thinking about his throwing motion. It's just got to be there. The only thing I ever mess with a quarterback is his feet and his hips, because that's kind of like your steering system. If you're thinking of a rocket, right? Like it's this is kind of the bomb, right? But you need your guidance systems, and that's what the feet and the hips are. That's really all I care about. But as long as it's something he can do and he can repeat it, then I think that's something I can roll with. So we'll find out in the spring if he's come along with it and developed it and enhanced it. And I think that's one area where not playing this fall, small area, might have helped him, because now it can just be focused on a million reps of just focusing on getting those mechanics right. So even though he lost something in game experience, he can gain it by working with the quarterback's coach as far as enhancing that throwing motion without having to think about, we got to go out and beat so-and-so on Friday night.